everyone, welcome back to Leandra the TBR0. Today I am giving you another reading journal video. This time though, I'll be reviewing all of my January spreads, mostly the reviews that I finished, but I'll also be writing my very last review of the month with you, and that'll be Matt Bell's Appleseed. And then at the end of the video, I'll show the beginning of my February spreads as well. And yes, I am recording this video on another unfinished puzzle. On the left-hand side, I've got my TBR list, so books that I hoped to finish in January, and then on the right-hand side, I've got the books that I actually did finish in January, and I'm quite proud of how well I stuck to my TBR list. Every book that I put on there, I did end up finishing, and that ended up totaling to 10 books, which is quite a lot for me. And also you'll see on my days read in January calendar, I read every single day, which you cannot complain about at all. My spreads are pretty uniform. I usually include some statistical information, but also I like to add some drawings that either remind me of the book or are related to some type of theme, like the guitar for the final revival of Opal and Nev, and then the scroll with a line from one of Audre Lorde's speeches for her book. I also drew the puzzle pieces as well as a Viennese coffee for Villainy in Vienna. And then for the School for Good Mothers, I'm quite pleased with the way my drawing came out for Frida, the main character, and her daughter Harriet. I free draw most of my sketches, so I always end up being quite nervous until I put the marker to paper, and then it ends up being fine in the end. The only thing that I have done a stencil previous is the bear, and that was because I drew it myself on a paper with pencil, and then I just stuck that paper behind my book review page so that I could outline it through the page. And then when it comes to the Eight of Swords, this tarot card, I mainly used reference in my own imagination based on my own tarot deck that I own, as well as the tarot card featured on the book's cover. For the House of the Spirits, I was quite happy with the magical floating objects, especially since that's something that Clara can do with her mind, and she does speak to the spirits through cards. And then for the Vanishing Stair, I of course drew a staircase, and that was one of the more nerve-wracking drawings because I wasn't really sure the logistics, but it ended up turning out amazing, to be honest. But without further ado, let's get into my final book review for January, and that's for Appleseed by Matt Bell. You can see that the book I finished before it was Clara and the Sun, and so while I'm drawing my book review, you can take a little look at that one too. But yeah, I think that you'll see that I'm pretty simplistic in the way I set up my book review pages, and that's because I only have markers to work with. I am not someone who has ever done a reading journal until this year, so I didn't want to overinvest in all of the special crafts and stickers and tapes, even though those book journals are gorgeous, and I may use those in the future if I find myself becoming more and more dedicated and I know that I'll actually continue with the craft. And because that's kind of the problem I usually have, is that I become so invested and I buy all of the supplies, and then for some reason I lose interest or I just don't have the time to do it. So that's why I decided to keep it simplistic with my first book journal. Buy a book, buy a bullet journal, and then buy a set of 10 marker felt pens, and there you go. And that's really all I use. And I think that this proves that you don't really have to have all the supplies to participate. I'm sure that my own journal doesn't look as glamorous, or my videos aren't as eye-catching as some, and you know what, that's fine. I totally understand. But I think that hopefully my own bullet journal will prove that for your own personal use, you don't need it to be flashy as long as you're enjoying it and getting what you're meant to get out of it, which is feeling a bit more involved with the books you're reading, being able to look back on the books you've read and maybe see a pattern, or even find a title that you may not fully remember the story, but you have records of how that book made you feel when you finished it. That's also why I try to finish my book reviews within, say, 24 hours of finishing the book itself. Of course, if time doesn't permit, then, maybe I'll take a second day or a third day to finally sit down and write the review. But it is quite nice and interesting to let your immediate reactions take control and just say how much you love the book or how much you did not love the book, because that's also happened. Another personal thing that I like to add to my book reviews is the backstory. For Matt Bell, my backstory for retrieving the book, for choosing to read the book this month, pretty much goes back to YouTuber Rick McDonnell. Among the many, many best books of that always happen every year, Rick McDonnell's brought to my attention Appleseed, because I'd never read the book before, and it seemed to also be a very new, surprising book for him. Like, he didn't really expect too much or didn't know what to expect when he entered the book, but he ended up loving it so much that he said he wanted to read everything by that author, and it ended up being his #1 ranked book of 2021. So I didn't need to hear anymore. I immediately ordered the book, and it was probably the last book I bought in 2021, because it was maybe the third or final week of December. And really, if you look at that cover, if you know me, that of course I'm gonna wanna read this book, because I am someone who really enjoys speculative fiction, and especially near future type of scenarios that have to do with environmentalism, or at least eco-apocalyptic futures. And if that's something you are interested in, then you should really consider Appleseed, because obviously I gave it 5 stars. You can see in my categories that it's got the dystopian aspect, but it also has historical fiction. And yeah, it was just an amazing book across multiple timelines that I don't even understand how he could have thought it up, but it was brilliant. You can tell that I'm basically trying to copy in my own way the cover of the book. I just think it's quite iconic. If you see that Earth is pretty much an apple, and that's why I drew my Earth to look like that. I'll admit, upon second glance, it may look like a tomato, but we do what we can. I think it also, for some reason, reminds me of the Empire apples, those dark red ones. And yeah, I'm drawing a little tree on the top. You can also tell that I don't really mind blending my sections together. My tree is somehow making its way into my started and finished dates, but I don't really mind that. Sometimes having everything look a bit crowded is also a very nice homemade look, in my opinion. I'm also pretty impressed with my very quick drawing of the globe when it comes to at least South America and North America. Obviously, they are not amazing, but I thought that those were pretty good quick sketches. And now I'm just drawing in with the blue. Another thing you might have noticed is that every spread has some type of main color, and usually I choose the color based on what the cover looks like, or maybe certain objects that are on the cover. For instance, we just saw that the title of Matt Bell's book is very electric blue. It's this very, very bright blue. And so I decided to, draw in the stars, do the dot borders that I have, and also write in the title and the author, all in blue. And that's the same with, say, Clara and the Sun. That book is very much red, and so that's why I ended up drawing the sun red and accenting my book review in red as well. I'm cutting out certain parts of this just because my head got into it, because I am still not super familiar with where to place myself when I have a camera above me. And you can see my hair in the video now. I'm still working on it, and maybe it would be better if my hair was in a bun or something, but of course I just have it down and it's crazy. But, you know, that's fine. I also am accenting the trees. I do that a lot with my drawings. You can see if you go back to the School for Good Mothers, my drawings for that were in black, but then I outlined both Frida and Harriet in pink. So I just think that that makes it pop a little bit more, and now I'm just finishing the border. And again, I don't mind that my drawings overlap or may go outside the border, because the border is more just to kind of give shape and allow me to have some boundaries of where my like statistics and things can go. I'll say I actually do prefer when my drawings kind of branch out, and that's why I usually try to put them in corners or on the sides where I know that they're gonna obstruct the border that I'm creating. I have thought about continuing this for February, because as of recording this video, I haven't actually finished a book yet, so I haven't had to make a review, but I'm thinking of keeping it similarly, but maybe instead of the circles at each corner of the page, I might do a heart, because of course February is all about love, and which is quite funny because I think we associate February themes with love mainly because of Valentine's Day, which is only one day, so I'm not really sure why we decided that that's how it goes, especially since February is probably one of the coldest months, at least where I live. So I just think that's quite funny when we think of some kind of like warm, loving atmosphere, when in reality February is the worst. Do you think that's why we have Valentine's Day in February? I know that, you know, we have Saint Valentine and there's some type of historical story with it, but also, like, come on. I don't think it would work or anyone would care as much if February, or if Valentine's Day was in June or something, instead of having this very cold, sad month. Even though it's the shortest month, somehow it feels like the longest sometimes. But yeah, I pretty much just write my reviews in one long paragraph. I try to focus on the major aspects that I love. I don't summarize the book, for instance, because I feel like that's a waste of space. I mention, at least with this book, many different titles that the book reminded me of. It reminded me of Something New Under the Sun by Alexandra Kleeman, and that's probably was my favorite book of 2021, to be honest. I love that author, and oh my gosh, that book was just so sad, but also believable at times, as well as ridiculous. And the book also reminded me of The Left Hand of Darkness, mainly because one of the perspectives by one of the characters is in a very cold, icy place. And if you've read The Left Hand of Darkness, that too is such a wintry read. And so if you happen to have Appleseed on your bookshelf and you're looking for winter vibes or something to go along with the cold weather outside your window, then I honestly think this is the book for you, because that really didn't necessarily get me in the mood for winter, but I felt it. There we are. That's the last spread of my January reads. You get a little better overlook view of it and a little bit better lighting, especially for Clara and the sun. But yeah, I ended up really being happy with this last drawing. I think it was among the many intimidating drawings that I attempted, probably going along with the vanishing stair, the staircase, as well as the bear. And it was mainly because I wanted the bear to be believable and realistic, so that's what made me really nervous. But yeah, goodness, what some good reads and some great spreads, and I'm really excited with how this is going. My next spread enters February 2022, and I had no idea what to draw for this title page. I think you can tell that I'm really bad with title pages because I also did a horrible job with January's. Well, not a horrible job, but just a very bland type of drawing. I made sure to include Mr. Brisby once again, but then I just, did little Valentine's Day themes, and you can tell that even with my TBR list and then my books read lists, I try to keep with the themes of using pinks, reds, purples. I am participating in Polathon, Blackathon, and a few other things. So I decided to organize it that way. And then this is my days read in February 2022. You can see that I've read for 2 days in a row, which is great. But I haven't finished anything, and that's why my books read list is currently bare. I am quite proud of my little heart plant though, and that little shelf, though I'm not gonna lie, the way that I sized things, that plant would definitely probably not be able to be on that shelf. I don't think that the shelf would be strong enough. But I also included some vines, some flowers with pink, just to make it very Valentine's Day-esque or February lovey-dovey. But yeah, there you go. Those are a few of my spreads for January as well as for February. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you're interested in my other spreads overall for the bullet journal, or my looking at how I designed my January spread originally, you can go ahead and look at my first bullet journal read. But for now, I'm gonna say goodbye to you, and thank you for spending some of your day with me. Have a good one. Bye. Like and subscribe.